Hi, I'm Jane Del Cohen with Our Story, and we're at the Northern Nevada African American Firefighter Museum with three distinguished but retired Reno Fire captains. Craig Claiborne, Roy Marchand, Noah Livingston. Guys, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're not that serious today, but when you were 7 years old, did any of you think you'd be a firefighter?
No.
How did you become a firefighter?
By accident. Some friends of mine were taking the test, going to take the test, and they talked me into taking it.
And why did you acquiesce?
I thought it'd be an interesting job.
And has it been?
Yes, it was.
How long?
35 years.
Roy?
Yeah, for me, I can remember succinctly. I was 26 years old. I was working in the casinos. I was thinking fire, police, or utilities. And I actually saw Greg in a pickup truck, Reno Fire Department pickup truck. And I started thinking fire even more. And then a neighbor of mine had just got hired by Sparks Fire Department, and he's now fire chief at Mammoth Fire Department down in Mammoth. And he gave me some ARCO books and was telling me about the upcoming tests. So he was really instrumental in getting me into fire service.
So you filed an application, and what did you feel like the day you got notice?
It was interesting because we tested in '88, and I didn't get hired until '90. And so from that original test, there was about 26, 28 that got hired. And so it kind of got off my radar. It was 2 years later, and I was actually going to school for television production. And they called me up and said, hey, we're doing background checks. Are you still interested? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. It was 3 months after that when they said, can you be to work in 2 weeks? I'm like, what? You went from calling me for background checks to can you be to work? So
Right.
Yeah, I'm glad. Best decision I ever made.
And how many years?
25 years.
Congratulations. Noah?
Let's see, I was a senior at the University of Nevada, Reno. My major was pre-med, physical therapy. I'd applied to go to physical therapy school. There were only 4 schools at the time that were accepting applications. Fortunately, or unfortunately, I was chosen to go to Children's Hospital in LA. And I visited LA when I was a child, and I was just like, oh, I really wasn't into wanting to go to LA. And we had taken the test, as Roy had said, like a year before myself and Mr. Claiborne were hired. And they came to us and said, hey, we're gonna be hiring, do you want the job? And I had to decide between taking the job and going to LA. And so I did a little research into it and saw that there was a lot of medical similarities, and that interested me, and I was into public service, and I liked coaching and doing things like that. So it just allowed me to say, all right, I want to do that, but my dad was hell-bent on me becoming a physical therapist. So I took all the information I had to him and sat down in front of him and said, hey Dad, I know you want me to go to LA and everything, but this opportunity is coming up. And I showed him the information, and he says, to quote him, boy, you better take that job. so I ended up taking it, and like Roy said, it was the best decision I've ever made.
What's been the best thing about being a fireman?
Community and the brotherhood that we established throughout, and the people I've met along the way, and the sense of family you have with most of the people you work with.
Do you find that missing in today's world in other communities?
I think it's taken for granted, because when you think about it, people, they have certain expectations in life. And when you pay taxes, you expect police, fire, teachers, but then they don't want to pay taxes when they get older. And then but then they expect that degree of service. So then you wonder, where's that happy medium of, being able to fulfill their needs and managing that tax liability.
Right. But within the firemen, there's still a big brotherhood.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And a whole sense of service.
Right.
And a sense of community.
You can go anywhere in the United States and tell them you're a fireman, and they'll welcome you in.
That's right.
That's
Mhm.
right.
And a lot of people have moved throughout the United States, and you pretty much know somebody in some state when you're going to visit, and you can usually stop by and it's like you never left.
So as a profession, it gave you a lot of sustenance in terms of the brotherhood and the community links.
Correct.
So what's one of your memories of being in service in Reno in that regard?
I would say my first fire. We came online in December of '84, and I was stationed at Station 6, which is in northeast Reno, actually southeast Reno. And I was with the fireman named Gary Lynn. We just got hired, and so we were out there and we're waiting for our first big fire, and they're going, "Don't wish for a fire, don't wish for a fire." So we're not wishing for a fire. We get a little dumpster fire, something here and there, and into January 21st, I remember exactly, 1 o'clock in the morning, I sat straight up in bed. We heard this big boom, and it ended up being the Galaxy plane crash on Virginia Street. So that was my first fire, and I just remember going into that and seeing all of the people who had been killed and lost their lives and all the destruction and everything. And went back to the station and said, well, if I can get through this, I can get through anything. And that was my first fire.
And nothing was as bad ever since?
Nothing was ever as bad as that.
How about you guys? First fire?
First fire. Gosh, my first shift didn't have one call. So here's this new kid just chomping at the bit to go do something. And it was one of those days where he didn't have a call, right? So every time the microwave beeper would go off, you'd jump. So it wasn't until the second shift that first thing in the morning, dead person. So that was my first call. First fire, gosh, just a little garage fire, yeah. But to piggyback on Greg's question, one of the things I enjoyed about being a firefighter was the work schedule. You know, a lot of people didn't realize that, you know, we worked 24-hour shifts, but you'd have these blocks of 4 days off. Mm-hmm. And being a single dad, I was able to go on field trips with my kids. I was able to coach their teams, and that was just a huge benefit that I didn't understand prior to being a firefighter. That you know, just the family time was really, really important to me. But also having a job where you felt like you're making a difference in the community. Mm-hmm. You know, when people see us, typically they're having the worst day of their life. You know, so if we can do even a little bit to ease that burden, you know, that's just a good feeling in itself. So.
And you do. And going back to what you said, people expect a fireman to show up. They sort of also love that hug you get, that feeling of security, and it's going to be all right, even though right now it's just really terrible. Yeah. First fire.
I can't remember my first fire, but I do remember a Galaxy airline crash. And like Roy Marchbank said, he says, you know, people when they normally see us, it's on the worst day in their life. And what's interesting about that is people they try and justify the job by the amount of calls you go on. But that's wishing death or despair on somebody, and which I don't understand. You know, oh, you gotta be busy. You know, it's like, that's wishing death or despair on somebody. They don't call us when they're having a barbecue. You know, they don't call. Oh, yeah.
Sometimes the neighbors call.
Yeah, or the neighbors call. You know, but yeah, you know, so it's interesting that people do that. But Galaxy Airline was an interesting one because I was there after the fact. And when the FAA and everybody showed up, and I got to fly, well, at that time it's called a snorkel, which is a ladder platform. And actually it's just a platform, not a ladder platform, but a platform apparatus. And I brought it up, and I got to see everything from above. And the people sitting in their seats looked like mannequins because all their clothing and hair was burned off, so they just looked like mannequins in the fuselage. And we ended up gridding off the area so that way they could take measurements and stuff. And so that stuck in my mind because I thought, wow, you know, a lot of those persons on that airline, they went, this is my last moments. And here we are at their last moment, and now we're trying to reclaim everything that they had so their family can move on. Mm-hmm. And that was pretty interesting.
And that was a pretty momentous event. But that leads to what was some of the worst moments or some of the personal challenges that you had to face as a fire person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how did you work through that?
There's a lot of mechanisms within the system. We debrief a lot of times, especially if we have something that's fairly traumatic, where everyone has an opportunity to come forward and express themselves, so that you don't take it home to your family, so that you don't internalize it. Like they said, the brotherhood, you've always got that support system that's there to support you, and you feel like you're doing something good for the community, and I think that's important when you become a firefighter or a policeman. You've got to have that internal want to be there to provide a service to people.
Yeah.
And how do you find the strength in yourself?
You know, for me, I was focused on the task. So I really didn't take any of the emotional stuff in. I had a job to do. So as long as I stayed focused on the task, I really didn't think that, you know, this kid's never gonna see his dad again, or they've just lost everything. That might come a little later, but it was the kids that were the same age as my kids. Those were the ones that tugged at my heart.
Yeah, those are the hard ones. When they look like family members, or they resemble
Right.
family members or children, it's just like the adrenaline level goes 99, 100%.
Yeah.
But you do have a job to do. How'd you learn your job? You fill out an application and you wait a couple of years, then you get a telephone call and say, show up.
Yeah.
What happens next?
Oh,
Well,
just a quick one.
well, what happens is they put you in a training class, and then what they do is they teach you basic fire operations, hose handling, and general knowledge. And then afterwards, it's on-job training. So you get sent to a station. That station kind of nurtures you through a vocational program or period in which they teach you the steps, how to manage yourself, how to shop. You know, when you're young and you get hired on, you know, when you go to the store, you just have a random list of stuff you're going to get. But when you have other people you're dealing with, and everybody puts in their money, so that way you can purchase the items for them. You have to be able to sort, categorize all their items, make sure you get the appropriate stuff, and give them their change back.
And you're talking about those famous firehouse lunches or dinners.
Yes, and and a big fallacy is that some taxpayers think that they're paying for our food, which they don't understand that our money comes out of our pocket to pay for our food, and our store list is split up if we're eating together amongst us three. If it's not, then you're spending money on yourself for what you're going to consume during your shift.
So one of the skills of a fireman is to be a good cook.
That helps.
That helps.
And Greg and I both did academies, so we took it to that level where we were new kids, and then we brought these people on that were in the position we were in when we started, and we were able to bring them through. And that was pretty rewarding too. That was one of the better things I felt I did in the fire department, was being a training captain and having those people and having that responsibility and making sure that they were able to perform when they were online to do the
Right.
job.
A really first-class mentor, right?
Correct.
Well, the academy was 12 to 16 weeks. And so really you're learning how to use the equipment and terminology, but you really have no clue until you get in the fire station and you start actually using it in different scenarios. And so for me, it was more important just to do what I was told for the first few years, really, because the senior guys are going to tell you exactly what they want, and the captain's going to give you orders and direction. As long as you're on the same page terminology-wise and you know what the equipment is and what it does, that's, to me, was the most value of the academy.
And does each incident become its own separate one, or are they all alike?
No, they're never alike.
No call was ever exactly.
No, they may come in and sound similar, but each situation has an offshoot that takes its own life, you know. And when we talk about training, you know, people talk about generational wealth, but they're talking about money. When we talk about generational wealth, it's training, because you're always passing on the knowledge that you learn from each general incident to other firefighters. You know, and it's kind of hard to quantitate it, because what happens is there's times where you'll take notes about things that happen and you go, oh yeah, this I have to teach them. You know, and then there's times where it just pops up in your ear and says, oh my goodness, I wish I had told them about this before it happened. So that way it wouldn't have blindsided.
Yeah.
But you know, I used to always tell my crew, there's 4 of us, so we have 8 little safety eyeballs. If you see something I don't, please let me know, so that way none of us get hurt.
Yeah, you can't be prepared for everything, because you never know throughout the day what call might come in. The galaxy, yeah, how do you prepare for that? You know,
You just react.
just so many different types of calls. But if you've been on a call that was similar, then you kind of use that information to help you with this current call. But you might, you know, one of the calls we went on was dislocate or sprained ankle over at one of those bounce houses. Well, we get there and the guy's foot is off. That's not a sprained ankle. His foot had come completely off and was facing the other direction, and the skin was pushed up on his ankle like a sleeve. So I remember doing a double take when I saw that. I was like, what? what is that? So it comes in as a sprained ankle. Well, yeah, that's it. Totally changes once you get there and see what you got to deal with.
do.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys all became captains. What's the path to a captain?
Start out as a firefighter, and you work through that progression, and then as you're learning to be a firefighter, they're bringing you along, teaching you how to work the apparatus, how to drive, and those types of things. And the next step up would be to an operator. It's an operator or an engineer is a person who drives the fire engine, maintains it, is going to be the one who pumps the lines when you go on the fire. So he's kind of like your background. He makes sure that you get to the scene safely. And then from there you progress to a captain. The captain is more like a supervisor over all the others. But like he was saying, when I was a captain, I allowed everyone to give input because like the 8 eyes are better than 2. So, and the next progression up will be your battalion chief, and none of us decided that it was something we wanted to do.
That's a lonely position.
Yeah,
When you become management or middle management, what happens is it separates you from your personnel, because now you're kind of caught in the middle. You're like a step parent. You don't really have any power, but you have authority, you know? And so you try and tell the kids what to do, and they're listening to you and try and do the best you can, but then the other parents in the back here telling you, no, you can't do that, no, you can't do that. So it's like having unkept promises, you know? You know, you have this wish list, they're only gonna let you do something off the wish list, and they're gonna tell you how to manage it.
And for me, it was interesting because there had never been any African Americans promoted to any position in the Reno Fire Department. And I remember going with Greg down to Pasadena for a Black Firefighters conference. And it was just really inspirational to see the Black chiefs and assistant chiefs and captains. And that really kind of lit something in my belly that I want to promote.
And what do you want to promote?
To promote from firefighter to captain.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Some people remain a firefighter their whole career. Some people go to operator and decide that that's where they like to, or they want to, you know, set their marker, and then other people decide to progress on to captain or battalion chief. So it just depends. A lot of people have a different opinion on where they want to do. And
Some people
where they
like
wanna be.
action on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like playing with equipment or figuring out how to maintain it or fix a problem. Other people like being administrators.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you find that niche, and then you hopefully fit in somewhere.
I had a captain who would sweat the small stuff, and he would fly off the handle for the littlest thing. And I decided to start studying. I'm like, this is too great a job to be stressed over this little stuff. So I said, you know, I'm gonna become a captain, and then I can control at least my station and not have this guy just berate me over some little inconsequential thing that happened in the station or on the call. So that was part of my motivation too, is just wanting my own, you know,
Domain.
authority. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, for my
Yeah,
station.
some people promote to manage their level of, how would you say it, risk. So when you're a firefighter, you're involved in all the risk. When you're an operator, you manage the equipment, getting the people to and from the call safely, and you manage the pump outside, right? So you minimize your exposure to smoke and fire unless it's a wildland fire. Whereas a captain, you're in there, but you have the ability to keep an eye on your crew, and you do a risk-benefit analysis on every call as you're going in, as you're managing that call. So that way you can say, okay, well, this is still safe to do, but we're only going to go so far, and then I'm going to pull you guys out, because we can always replace buildings, we can replace cars, we can replace houses, we can replace those inanimate those things, but we can't replace each other's lives. So those are the risks that I felt promoting helped me manage, because I knew I wanted to get and do my time, help as many people as I could, and come home safely with my crew.
I agree.
And like he was saying, for me, I wasn't comfortable being an operator because on a day like today when it's snowy out, you know, you're responsible and you're not always the one that's going to be making the decision of someone running into you and stuff. So I wasn't as comfortable as an operator as I was as a captain. So what he's saying carries a lot of weight.
So what would you say to young people that are thinking about becoming firefighters?
Do it.
Just that
You'll
simple.
never-
Yeah, it is. It's
You'll
really, it's
never
just that
regret it.
simple. If
Do
you like-
whatever it takes.
If you like helping people and you have a sense of community and you like people and you're family oriented and you're team driven, yeah, I'd say become a
Those
firefighter.
are all non-academic skills.
And it's very rewarding, you know, after you come back from a call and you save someone's life, or you know, we don't do that and rescue cats out of trees, but you've done something
Beneficial.
It really reflects on you when you go back to the station, and you have to have that kind of a want in yourself to want to be a fireman or a policeman, I think, or anyone that's in public service.
Yeah, and there's obviously danger, but it's, through training and good leadership, you know, we minimize that. It's calculated risk, and like Greg said, at the end of the day, you can replace that building, but you want to see
Can't replace a life.
exactly. So we always, for me, it was always, you know, err on the side of safety. But it's just a great job, I tell you. Just the benefits, the pay, the time off, the brotherhood, the sisterhood. It's just a great job. I wish everybody could be a firefighter.
Yeah, because you get to help people, you know, and helping people gives you a sense of purpose. A lot of people, they don't know what their purpose is, you know, what's the meaning of life, you know, it's to help people and to help yourself become a better person. And it helped me become a better person, and I tend to be more empathetic. I listen to people more now than I was. I'm not as selfish as I was when I was growing up, you know. But then that's also, it's like being a parent. You know, you realize the world is bigger than you. And then you start realizing, hey, you know, I got to do things. But then as far as academia is concerned, we had to study all the time. You know, you had CEUs you had to do, you had training you had to do. Hydraulics is nothing to play around with. That's a ton of math, you know. And so to be able to rapidly calculate your friction losses and hoses and making sure everybody on the end of the line is getting the correct pressure, you know, that's no joke, you know. So, you know, calculating fire flows, understanding the different nuances of chemicals and their reaction to water and, you know, metals and stuff like that. You know,
It's a constant learning process.
correct. If you want to
you're
be
gonna be good.
continually in school,
Yeah.
become a fireman because you're always learning.
And you should be. I mean, because again, you never know what the day's going to bring, and lives are on the line.
And you guys started in the 80s, so we're 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
I did 30 years.
Think about the change of the technology.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things you've seen that have changed for the better?
To be honest, what you see a lot in changes are, we still use nozzles, but you'll see the technology progress there. We still use hoses, and you'll see the progression there. So technology-wise, I think the biggest thing that we've been inheriting now is the fact that they use computers for the medical calls, so that you can log everything in, and you have that reference. But other than that, firefighting is firefighting. You know, you put the wet stuff on the red stuff and put it out.
I was part of a group that brought thermal imaging cameras to the Reno Fire Department, and that allowed us to see fire that's behind the wall, hidden hot spots. And so you're not having to tear up a whole ceiling, just wondering if there might be a fire.
Fire behind it.
The thermal imaging can actually show you stuff like that, or a downed person, you know, that's laying in a smoke-filled room. That thermal imaging camera would really help pick that person up. But for me, one of the things I'm most grateful for is hearing protection that we could talk to each other on.
Yeah.
You know, when I first got on, we had hearing protection, but nobody really wanted to wear it because you couldn't hear the radio, you couldn't hear the captain. And about 92, 93, we got the headsets that were connected to the radio so we could communicate with each other. And it made for better communication all around, especially when you're driving the back end of the ladder truck.
Yeah,
But it saved our hearing, and so many firefighters prior to us, they're all wearing hearing aids now because of it's just a loud job. Between the sirens, the chainsaws, and then whatever, it's a loud job. So. I was so thrilled when we got there. We could talk to each other.
Right.
And you talk about the little things, technology. Okay, computers were a big thing. SCBAs, because a lot of old guys didn't like to wear self-contained breathing apparatus, so they choked on the smoke. So they die of lung cancer and stuff like that 5 to 7 years after they retired. We had MDTs, which were great because you used to get this little ticker tape.
Wait, tell the truth about them things.
Okay, I am like, we used to get these little ticker tapes,
And
and you used to try to read it, and you're bouncing around the call trying to read this little printout. And then the MDTs, they were good when they kind of, sometimes they were a break, okay? Because, everybody thinks technology never fails. Well, it did. And so you'd be sitting there in the MDT, you'd be like trying to get information and it wouldn't come across. And some people say, I'm just throwing this thing out the window, And then, let's see what else, the pass device. Because if you had a down firefighter, we had this little yellow box. It looked like a brick that Captain Marchbank's brought in that would tell you when a firefighter's down or still. And then most guys wouldn't turn it on. Fire pumps. It used to be you looked at analog meters and to see where everything was going. Now it's all digital, and the pressure gauges where you can set the pressure, you can see what they are, what the pressure in each hose is. The braking systems on apparatus have gotten so much better. The power and the motors have gotten so much better.
When we had some open cat fire trucks.
Yeah.
So on a day like this, the guys in the back were exposed to the elements.
I think when Greg and I got hired, it was just before they banned you could ride on the outside of the fire truck. So
Yeah, you could ride tailboard.
you could just jump on the back, strap yourself on, and you're hanging onto the back of the fire truck. They eventually didn't allow us to do that anymore, but I think we were one of the last.
One of the last groups where you put on a
And I
ladder
do
belt,
it
you clip into the rear rail on the tailboard, you stuff your hand up under the hose cover, and you just pray for the best. And you hang on, wait, rain.
Well, it was
wind,
optional.
sunshine.
It was
Yeah,
fun,
it was-
yeah.
No, it was
You didn't have
optional,
to, but we-
unless you're
like
on a
it.
rig that had a whole bunch of people on it, Because sometimes, especially back in the days prior to computers,
No,
they used
yes.
to do our manning through a Rolodex. And if you're in the top 40, you knew you're getting recalled, right? Or called in for overtime. And sometimes, they'd be shifting people around, because somebody had to take time off here or there. And you bounce around, you fill in the hole, next thing they lose you in the shuffle. You're on a rig with 4 or 5 guys, and there's no place for you to sit. And then next thing you're strapped into the back and you're hanging on, it's winter, and you're like, oh. And it's interesting. It's gotten a lot better.
Safety. It was always about safety, and that was a good thing.
The fire departments are also about prevention.
Correct.
And none of you guys talked about what fire department does for prevention for the public.
We have a prevention division within the fire department, but we also do building inspections, which allows us to get familiar with different types of residences, occupancies, and that kind of thing. And we'll find that the kids will get involved in finding out what is going on within that. We'll work with the children and kids within the community. We do show and tells, we go to the school. So that's part of our role in it. They do have a particular department that does fire prevention.
Yeah, the fire code was what really dictated, fire prevention.
Right.
And that was a blessing to us, as the fire code evolved. Everything in Reno, 3 stories or taller, has sprinklers in it. And that's because of the fire code. And that was because of the big fires down in
In Las
Vegas.
Vegas,
Yeah, but for us, like Noah was saying, just interacting with the kids and then reiterating how important it is to be fire safe and not play with matches and all that stuff. And then for me, just being familiar with my district and the buildings, especially the places that had a little more hazard to them, just so because you never know. Again, 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe you've only seen this building once or never. So trying to prepare in that way before the fire happens.
Well, and there's sections of the city that are old, and there's sections that are new, and each one of them has different material and
They're different hazards. It's kind of like STED. You go to STED, you have an airport, You have heavy industry, you have light industry, you have people that are mixing. Crumb Ryan was out. Crumb Ryan was on North Virginia. That was District 10. So they're doing metallurgy. You have welding plants. You have
Single-story residences,
single-story
trailers.
And just the size, 1 million square feet of warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
the Michelin warehouses out here. Hidden Valley Ranch. They used to have explosive walls. So if they had a dust explosion, the wall would give away and come back. And before I believe Michelin Warehouse had the underground tunnels where you could climb in if you had a fire in your area and you'd evac out the tunnel to the exterior. See, so depending on which area you chose to work in or which district, they all had their pluses and minuses. So, if you were in Sun Valley, you had all the trailers.
And dogs.
If you and dogs, yeah. Old Reno, you had heavy timber. Good frame construction. Newers were light frame, engineered truss.
as it started growing up.
Center Reno had bowstring trusses. It just all depended on where you're at. So
you have to balance fire code with building code.
yeah, with life safety, your risk versus benefit analysis. Depending on the area you're in, even the people when they call you for medicals, what they interpreted as what they thought was, life-threatening was totally different. Everybody has their different opinion on what life-threatening is and why they call it 911. That's why they came up with it. 911 is not a joke. And then Smokey the Bear. That's fire prevention.
That's right. Let's go back to 911 for a minute. What happens when somebody calls 911? How do you decide whether it's a sprained ankle or a real fire emergency?
They try and triage the call.
Through the dispatch, they'll call 911, dispatch will say, what type of call do you have? And if it's a medical, they'll handle it one way. If it's a police or fire emergency, they'll handle it another way.
So in summary, you got your medical and your fire in a lifetime career.
Yes, it was very beneficial. I was very lucky.
You guys had, like I said, long and distinguished careers, but now what's retirement bring you?
Travel. Fishing, hunting, playing outside, pretend like I'm a kid again.
Relaxing, kicking back, like he said. I go back and see a lot of the guys and preach to them. The most important thing I think about getting out of the fire service is getting out with your health. And so like they were saying, ear protection, things like that. The guys take for granted, wearing your SCBA so that you're not exposing yourself to the bad smoke and the gases. You want to be able, when you retire, to do the same things you were doing when you were working. So whenever I go back, I just hammer the poor guys and they're like, oh, Coach, no, I understand why you want to retire and be able to do
enjoy
things.
it.
Enjoy it. But a lot of guys get injured, and so that's the downside of the job. And you do go to work knowing that it could be your last day at work. So you try to prepare, and you have to be conscious of that fact.
And for me, it was just, there was some guilt for about a year. I retired fairly young, and most of my friends were still working, and it's just some guilt. I was surprised.
You had an injury.
Yeah, and I could have got
Could've worked
surgery
sure.
and come back to work, but yeah 25 years, why get injury again? So there was some guilt there, but then I just felt so blessed to be retired that I got involved with the community.
And what do you do?
I volunteer at Sparks Middle School, and that led, I started there just as a mentor, but then that transitioned into coaching the 7th and 8th grade boys and girls basketball teams. And I'm pretty involved with my church, and now I got a 4-year-old granddaughter, and she keeps me busy. So.
And you coach?
I coach at Hug High School, boys and girls track. Been there for 37 years. It's my alma mater.
Congratulations. And you're coaching trout?
Trout.
Well, you said fishing.
Oh, no, I don't coach them. I just try and catch them. And eat them. No, I don't coach. I have a large family, and they keep me busy. My community is helping my family. Taking care of them and making sure the kids are all taken care of. And, my wife gives me a list of stuff to do. My grandkids give me a list of stuff to do.
Yeah, I thought it was.
My mom still gives me a list of stuff.
I thought it was toilet paper, but that was just a list.
That's just a list. Yeah, that's just a list. And so, you know, and then I have friends that have retired that, you know, we're supposed to go hunting and fishing and stuff together. And now they have their list of stuff to do. So I get to see them every once in a while, you know.
Oh, goodness.
We're sitting here in this museum, which you guys have really contributed to in many ways. What does it mean to you to have a place like this?
I think it's, for me, because I took a pretty big role in trying to get this off the ground to help my friend Kenny, who I've known for a long time. When he first came here to Reno, he was one of the first guys that I really attached to that was from out of town, and we just kind of hit it off. He said, "Let's go." And I'm like, "Where are we going?" You know, "Let's do this."
Sounds like you too.
And we've always been connected that way, and it's just been a great experience.
Well, what does this place signify to you?
For me, it signifies the fact that when Greg and I got hired, and then later Roy, how can I say that? Being the first firefighters wasn't easy. And being the first minority firefighters was not easy at all. And when we first came on, there were a lot of people who said, "Oh, they're gonna leave you in fires, and they're gonna do this, and they're gonna do that, and they're gonna, you know, they're not gonna help you." But when we came on, there was a small group of guys who really took us under their wing and really, you know, made sure that we knew what we needed to know. And that's important because in the fire department, it's like being in the service in the Army. Once that fire starts, everyone is a brother, you know. I'm looking out for you, you're looking out for me. And so this museum, to me, is a great way to reflect how far we've come, you know, and how far we intend to still go. And we're going to build on this, and it's going to be something wonderful that we believe the community is going to be able to look at. It's going to be a resource and a place for meeting and education, and we want all of those things. And we hope that we can get everyone to step up and contribute to it over time. And I just think it's wonderful that Kenny and Demetrius were able to pull it off.
Thank you.
Yeah, same thing. It's just definitely a connection to the past. You know, I didn't know a lot of the history of this area, but this is a great reminder for me that, you know, I didn't get here by accident. You know, people came before me and helped pave the way, and these two guys here were part of that paving. And so how can I contribute for the next generation and pave the way for them? So this is just a neat, I think Noah and Kenny and everybody else who's been involved is special.
It's been a labor of love. A lot of people have been involved. I'm not trying to take any kind of credit.
Yeah, I was never a big history buff, but this signifies progression. You know, we've come a long way. We still have a long way to go. I never thought about this area and the history of this area because being born and raised in this area, you don't truly understand the value of where it came from or anything like that. So it was my normalcy. And so by doing this, it makes me reflect on the things that had happened, what we've been through, what we're going through, and the things that we still need to accomplish.
And those are?
As a community, everybody understanding, coming together, realizing we're all one family, no matter if you're white, black, brown, purple, green, yellow, that we all are trying to work, survive, provide for our families, be a community, look after one another, and do the best you can, and be mindful of others.
Yeah, and it's sad that, you know, there's less African-American firefighters on the department today than there was 6 years ago. You know, and so I think it's important that we can still have opportunities to show the public that this is a great career. You know, don't give up on it. And just not only minority kids, but little white kids need to see black firefighters. They need to know that we're something more than entertainers and athletes. And just trying to inspire that next generation is really important.
On that note, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
we'll see you back again.
Thank you.
Thank you.